Welcome to this module on Splunk Enterprise Indexer Clustering. So today we are going to see how to set up the clustering, the importance of clustering, why do we need Splunk and Indexer clustering. So if you are managing a growing Splunk environment, then ensuring data availability, reliability is crucial, right? So imagine a scenario where an indexer fails. Like in a small environment, if you see you just have one indexer. What if that indexer fails? How will you prevent data loss? You can't, right? If you lose that indexer, your data will be gone. So how, and if that's gone, how do you ensure searches remains unaffected? That can't be done, right? Because if the indexer goes, your complete data will be lost. So that's where indexer clustering comes in. In this course, we will break down the fundamentals of indexer clustering, its types, key concepts, and later on I will show you the step-by-step deployments of a single site and multi-site cluster in upcoming sessions. By the end of this session, you will not only understand clustering but also be able to set it up efficiently in your Splunk environment. Having said that, I have put in some slides just for your reference. If you see here, here I have consolidated the course objectives, what we are trying to cover up. So importance of clustering, what is indexer clustering, types of indexer clustering, those sort of things. So moving to the next one. So here I've explained the clustering. Like before we jump on to the indexer clustering, we need to understand what really clustering is, right, and its importance. So clustering, it's nothing. It's just kind of grouping the systems to act as a unit, right? So, like if if the one machine goes off the track, you still have other machines to take over the load, right? So that's where the clustering comes in picture. And if you see the importance, there is high availability. Obviously, like if one node fails, as I said, there will be other nodes, those can take over. Scalability, you can easily scale your environment by adding the new servers to the clustering. And then the load balancing, obviously, you can balance the load, like incoming traffic as well as the outgoing traffic. Then fault tolerance. So, for example, just to give you an idea, think of an e-commerce website, right? So, if one server crashes during a sale, customers should still be able to browse and make purchases, right? So that's exactly what clustering ensures for Splunk logs and searches. Uh, so, moving to the next one. Now we will purely focus on the indexer clustering. So how clustering works in Splunk? Don't get confused. There are two kinds of clustering in Splunk. One is the indexer clustering. Later on you might get to know about the other clusterings as well. Like you can configure clustering on your heavy forwarder layer as well. So that's a different thing. But in general, we usually discuss about indexer clustering and search head clustering. So indexer clusters, obviously I know you know the term indexer, right? So indexer clustering, it's the group of indexer that replicates data among themselves. So what does that mean? Like if your UF is sending data to one indexer, and obviously you will be using the custom load balancer or the auto LV, right? So the data will be ingested to one indexer, and then if you have the clustering enabled, the data will be replicated to your other peer nodes. Uh, so this ensures that you have the multiple copies of your data among your indexers. So even if you're and it can tolerate the failure of number of nodes like and minus one. So if you have three nodes, it can tolerate 3 minus 1. means two nodes can fail, still your environment will be up and running. Now, like the main benefits, you will have multiple copies of data. The failover will happen automatically. You do not really need to do anything. And then key benefits: data availability, data fidelity, data recovery, disaster recovery. So disaster recovery, mainly it comes in picture when we talk about multi-sided indexer clustering. But yeah, then search affinity. This is mainly when your other, like your site is down, these searches can work locally on a region, right? So now imagine you are monitoring security logs, and if one indexer storing critical event log crashes, that will completely halt your security investigation, right? And I hope you won't like that. Your investigation ideally shouldn't stop, right? So that's why Splunk keeps multiple copies in the cluster. Now, if you see, there are mainly two types of indexer clustering. Single site. This is purely focused on high availability. So on the same site you have multiple copies of the data, and then the multi-site clustering is mainly like for the DR purpose. So you're keeping some copies on the other side. So if you lose the site completely, still you are not going to lose your data, right? So that's where the multi-site clustering comes in picture. Okay, so now coming to the nodes in indexer cluster. So there are basically three kind of nodes: manager node, peer node, and then the search head. So manager node, like as name suggests, it controls the cluster, manages peer nodes, and it also handles the bucket replication, right? So if it's sending data to one indexer, like obviously we'll be using auto LB or custom LB. So the data will be posted to one indexer, and then to replicate it to the other peer nodes, manager takes care of that. And then there is a peer node. So peer node is nothing; it's just the indexer. And what it does, like obviously it stores the data, and then the replication happens to the peer nodes from the like among themselves, right? So and then it handles both indexing and searching. So whenever you make the search request from the searcher, it goes to indexing layer via master node, and then you get back your results. Then the third one is the search head, where you write your SPLs and query the data. So I mean, just to reiterate on the manager node, you think of the manager node as a traffic controller. It directs the data flow and ensures all indexers have the right copies. So these are some important concepts you should know when you are working on the indexer clustering in Splunk. So these are the key terminologies you will be using, and you should know like what exactly they do in clustering, right? So there is a replication factor, first one. So like replication factor, like how many copies of the data you want to keep, like the raw data copies basically. So if you're defining it as two, right? So Splunk is going to maintain two copies of your raw data. Similarly, you have the search factor. So search factor and replication factor both are related to keeping the multiple copies of the data, but replication factor is purely for the raw data, while search factor keeps raw data as well as it generates the index files so that the data becomes searchable. So unless the buckets have the index files, that data can't participate in the searching, right? So that's about the search factor. And then the buckets, obviously these are the directories in your Splunk installation where your indexed data is stored. So here is an just the overview of a single site indexer cluster. So as you can see, there is a manager node, search head. So search head is communicating with all your peer nodes. So as you can see, you have three peer nodes. and few EUFs, right? So your EUFs will be sending data using LV to your indexers, and upon receiving the data on the peer node, the data will be replicated to other peer nodes based on the replication factor and search factor. And once the data gets replicated, the data will have multiple copies among peer nodes. So whenever, and then your search head can like even, so what happens if you lose your one or two peer nodes, right? And if you have the replication factor set as 3, like it's shown in this example, so even if you lose two peer nodes, like this and this, you will still have this peer node up and running, and your all search requests will redirect to this peer nodes, and you will still have all the data returned to your SPL queries. You're not going to lose anything. Okay, so now I'm just going to uh, give you a brief about implementing indexer cluster. Obviously, we'll be doing it practically in next session, but here just to let you know the process. So before implementing the cluster, you need to understand the requirement, like how many copies of the data you want to keep, what should be the replication factor, search factor, what should be the storage size, all sort of things you need to know, you need to understand, and then you will proceed with implementing the cluster, right? So then you need to configure one manager node, two indexers, in case you like, these are the minimum requirements you need, and then one search head. Obviously you can have multiple peer nodes, and you can later on set up search head clustering as well, so you can have multiple search head instances. Just make sure that your system clock is synchronized across all instances participating in the cluster. And then there are various ways to enable indexer clustering, like single site clustering. Basically, there are differences in implementing single site and multi-site clustering. So the single site indexing can be enabled using web UI or CLI or server.conf. So as I said, the clustering can be enabled using Splunk web or by directly editing server.conf or using CLI. So these are ways to enable all three kind of nodes: manager node, peer node, and search head. So I have uh, put in steps here, like just the sample data, just for your reference. So if you can see, like we'll see how to do it using Splunk web when we do it practically. Then you can directly edit server.conf, or you can use Splunk CLI as well. Uh, So it's same across all kind of nodes, like whether you are working on master node or peer node, or whether it's searched. The process remains same. You can do it either ways. Okay, so I think that's it. I mean, this is the overview I just wanted to give you before we jump on into setting up the single site and multi-site indexer clustering. And I hope it would have given you a clear idea, like what exactly the clustering is, what clustering means in Splunk, how to set it up, how does it work, what's the replication factor, what's the search factor. But still, if you feel like you still have some doubts, feel free to put a comment, and I'll try to respond to you at the earliest. Okay, thanks a lot.